We're starting.
Hello everyone, and thank you all for attending this evening and hello everyone and thank you for attending. Sorry, I think I preempted that start there. Thanks for taking time out of your very busy schedules, and I'm sure that some extra things have probably popped up as well from the lockdown we had over the last couple of weeks. So I'm Fran Power. I'm a youth counsellor here at Wyndham, and we're just going to wait maybe a minute or two just to see if we get a few more people logging on before we start. So grab yourself a cuppa or quick dash off, do anything you need to, and we'll be going in about a minute. So for those that have just logged on, I've just introduced myself as Fran Power, and just thanking you for taking time out of your night tonight. I'm a youth counsellor here at Wyndham, and I'm hoping to teach you and educate you about supporting your team with managing stress, and hopefully give you some really practical takeaways from today. So before we start, I would just like to do the acknowledgement of country. So as we gather here today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on which Wyndham Council sits and on which we're all meeting from our different homes. We would like to pay our respect to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, culture, knowledge and hopes of all Aboriginal Australians. We must remember that beneath this building is the land that was and always will be Aboriginal land. Okay, so who we are. So as I said, I'm Fran Power, and tonight with us we also have Beck, who myself and Beck are youth counsellors at Wyndham, and G, who is our youth coordinator. So we've got our email there. So at any point you can take a screenshot as we go through tonight. And you can also write in the chat box if you have any questions as we're going. Beck and G will be monitoring both the youth counselling email as well as the chat box. So please feel free to pop in questions as we go. If it's not answered by Beck or G as we're going, then we'll have questions at the end to cover anything that we might have missed. So I've been working directly with young people for almost half my life now, and I'm starting to realise the importance of actually teaching from the top down. So getting parents, carers and families involved, equipping you with the knowledge and the skills to help the young people that you live with or that you work with. So what we have here is we have our Youth Strategy Survey 2020 from Mission Australia. This has been an annual survey that's been going for 19 years now. And unfortunately, the numbers of young people and their personal concerns are increasing. So for last year, we could see that the #1 concern for young people was coping with stress. So more than 4 out of 10 young people, they felt ticked that they felt stressed either most of the time or all of the time. So a really, really huge number. We also know that of that, there were a lot more females. So almost 60% of females were saying they felt stressed all the time, compared to 25% of males. We also know that 1 in 3 young people were saying they had concerns around their mental health and getting support. So really important that we can support our young people and help them deal with these concerns that they're having. So stress and anxiety. It is a normal part of being human. We all experience stress at some time or another. It helped our species to evolve, and without anxiety, we wouldn't have survived. So it can be helpful in some situations, as I'll show on the next slide. It can help our performance and it can help us prepare and concentrate. However, when we have too much stress or ongoing prolonged stress, it can actually tip the scales on the other side. So here you'll see we've got a performance anxiety curve. So optimal stress actually sits as our stress starts to build a little bit, because it can help us perform. It can make us a little bit nervous or a little bit concerned so that we study. We may be attending classes. So for example, my stress level for this presentation caused me to get my slides in order, made me practice the presentation, and I was sitting at that optimal level. If I didn't have any stress, I probably wouldn't have prepared, and I wouldn't have been concerned about the outcome. But then if you get too much stress, that's when it goes into that overload or that burnout. So for year 12s or high school students, we're looking at a nice level of stress that will help them connect into school, but not too much that they're avoiding or burning out from their studies. So you may have heard the terms fight or flight response. What you may not have heard are the ones not so well known, are freeze and fawn. So this goes back to the cavemen days, and it goes back to the cavemen having to know when they left their home if they were going to be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. They needed to be on alert. They needed to know the best way to survive. So their body had to instinctively, really quickly decide, am I going to be best to fight this tiger? Am I going to win? Is this a tiger that I'm stronger than? Am I going to be faster than this tiger? Can I run away and outbeat it? Is this tiger stronger and faster than me? Do I need to play dead so it doesn't want to eat me? And now we also have fawn, which is trying to look cute or trying to please others to get out of a situation. And we'll look at these in depth in a moment. What we know with the fight, flight, freeze response is that it's our natural reaction to danger. So it's a type of stress that helps you react to perceived threats. So sometimes when a young person is experiencing anxiety, there may not be an immediate threat or a threat that you think is a big concern, but to the young person, it's how they perceive it. So it's something that they're really concerned about. So our body, what happens to our body is adrenaline's pumped through our arteries. Our heart can beat faster and harder. Our pulse can get quicker. We can feel as though our head is pounding, or we have butterflies in our tummy. I can feel in myself right now that I'm talking a lot quicker, or I'm breathing a little bit more shallow. We may experience worrying or panicking thoughts, intrusive and recurring ongoing thoughts. We can be slow to respond, and sometimes we can snap really quickly. So although there may be immediate responses to anxiety, they can be uncomfortable. It is the brain trying to protect us. So it is something that is actually good, but it's when we have too much that it becomes uncomfortable and overwhelming. So let's have a look at these four in detail. So the fight response, what you might notice in your young person if they're having a fight response with their anxiety or their stress is explosive behaviour, temper tantrums, outbursts, bullying or trying to control others. They may not hear or want to listen to other people's point of view. They may demand perfection from others and themselves. Their body can get really hot and heated, and the adrenaline is really full on and really pumping. So it might be seen as a very overly defensive response to a simple question. You know, have you done your homework tonight? And the young person might snap at you really quickly, and you're sort of thinking, oh, you know, it wasn't that big a deal, but it's what they've perceived to be a threat. Flight, what you might notice if a young person is having a flight response to anxiety. You may notice feelings of panic or anxiety, obsessive or compulsive behaviours, rushing around, overly worried and worrying, workaholic. They can't sit still or relax. They're always on the go. They want things to be perfect, and they may be overachieving or trying to overachieve. So they may give a quick, rapid response that is jumbled, can go on for a while, and it might not quite make sense. It can be sort of a bit of a scattered response, or they may just do a really quick, short response and run away from the situation and completely avoid. The freeze response. So a young person experiencing a freeze response of anxiety, they may seem spaced out, they may have brain fog, they may be forgetful, indecisive, they might want to hide from the world, be a couch potato and sit on the in their room watching Netflix all the time, and they may not be able to answer questions. Another example, or an example I had of clients with the freeze response, was they weren't even aware that they had any stress or were experiencing any anxiety. And when I spoke to them about why they were coming to me, the only thing they could think of was when they got into an exam, they forgot the answers. They didn't know the answers. I asked them if they'd studied, and they said they'd prepared and they knew the work. And when they went out of the exam, they could remember the answers. But in that time of the exam, their body wouldn't allow them to recall the information. So this is where they were freezing in that moment. And the fawn response. So people pleasing, flattering others, avoiding conflict. They may often feel taken advantage of, being unable to say how they really think or feel, caring for others out of their own detriment, always saying yes. They may struggle with low self-esteem, and they may be very concerned about fitting in with others. So all of these responses, we will experience all of them at one point or another. And we can always see we may have one dominant response. So in our household, my husband is definitely fight and flight. He is quick-tempered, he's very busy, on the go, overachieving, hardworking. But then I balance him out because I'm the latter two, and I like to please, and I try and keep things calm and keep the situations a bit more quiet. So you may see different responses in your young person, or you may even have different children that respond differently as well to each other. So everyone will have a slightly different dominant response that they go to automatically. So signs and symptoms of prolonged stress or worry. So as parents, we know that our children are going through difficult times. It's when we need to be on the lookout for some of these changes in behaviours or things that they may not be feeling, or they may be feeling that signal that they're suffering from excessive stress. So if they can't sleep or they're sleeping too much, feeling tired, feeling restless, they're just not themselves. So there's sort of, these behaviours have been going on for a while. They might be short-tempered, tense, irritable. They may be extremely sensitive to criticism. They may not be eating well, overeating, undereating, telling you they have headaches or upset tummies, avoiding school or homework, having trouble concentrating, not wanting to go out on weekends with their friends, and spending lots of time isolated in their rooms. Now, you might actually look at this list and go, oh, my teenager does all of these. All teenagers will do some of these at one point or another. But what we want to be really mindful of is looking at how long it's been going on for and how much is it impacting on their daily life and on the family as well. So looking for signs that don't go away. The causes of stress. So young people can feel like they have the whole weight of the world on their shoulders. Some things that they say causes their stress that young people have listed down are homework and school, especially during exams and SACs, expectations and pressure to do well from school and family, but sometimes it's also from themselves. They've put that expectation on themselves. A lot of young people are concerned and are worried about knowing what they want to do after school. There can be pressures that they have to know what uni course they want to do, what subjects they want to do, and they're not quite sure. There's social relationships with their friends, boyfriends or girlfriends, the issues of sex and developing, extracurricular commitments, life changes, so going from prep to year 7 or transitioning schools, or from year 12 into adulthood, into work commitments or other university or TAFE commitments, a lack of time and sometimes having too much to do, feeling unprepared or overwhelmed, and a lack of sleep. So why is it important to build coping skills? Okay, so the teenager years are a really important time in our lives where they're trying to find autonomy and independence among a constant battle of peer pressure and social media constraints to fit in and be like everyone else. So they're trying to fit in, but they're trying to be their own person at the same time. It can be very overwhelming and very confusing. So being a young person isn't easy. It's their whole life and it's all that they know. It's a very different generation now that are coming through of young people with full-time social media. If we're parents or of an older generation, we may not have had social media when we were growing up. The teenager years are accompanied by a number of stresses and life changes that I just spoke about. They're going through big hormonal changes and puberty, which doesn't always align with the other young people in their classes, so they can feel like they're ahead or behind and not fitting in and different. They can experience peer pressure and bullying, and they're feeling a need to fit in while trying to figure out who they are. So to tackle the difficulties that come with being a young person, it's crucial to engage the young people to develop positive coping strategies. So we want to help them build their confidence, manage their emotions, improve their independence and manage stress. We want them to, have these tools that we can teach them now when they're doing well, when they're thriving, so that on the hard times they can use them and they feel comfortable and confident using them too. So, excuse me, positive coping skills, they're going to help if your teen is showing signs of stress, they're not coping well, they feel overwhelmed, if their health and their well-being are negatively impacted by stressful events or difficult emotions, and your teen isn't able to problem solve on their own. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at creating a healthy mind with positive coping strategies. So it's like a puzzle. Every piece or every little coping strategy that we can teach our teens will help create a bigger picture and help with good mental health. So we try and add in small steps every day, and then that can have a really big impact overall. So positive coping skills and strategies are actions that they can take to help manage and reduce their stress in the short term and the long term. And in contrast, we don't want them engaging in negative coping strategies because they usually only help as a distraction, but they don't actually help build that resilience long term. Okay, so let's have a look. Number one, most important strategy for young people is sleep. Taking a break and sleep. So as you can see from this wheel, that depending on what your age bracket your young person falls into, 10 to 12 years, they should be having about 10 to 11 hours a night. And then 12 to 18-year-olds, 8 to 9 hours a night. So I would say that the majority of the clients that I see as a youth counsellor are not getting nearly that much. It's not also the time of sleep, but the quality of sleep. So we know that young people, when they're on their phones or on devices, or even using computers for study or watching TV, that the blue light from these devices is actually ruining the quality of their sleep as well. So our teenager brain is right in the middle of development, and rest and sleep are paramount to helping that brain develop and to have healthy function and growth. Also, we know that taking time out is really important too. So sometimes people can see taking time out as lazy, they're not achieving, or they should be doing other things. But having time out and doing things that we enjoy is really important so that we can recharge our batteries and continue going. So I have 2 little children myself, and I already talk to them about the brain when I talk about sleep. So we talk about sleep at nighttime. They often don't want to go to bed. They want to stay up and play. And I talk to them about how they're helping their brain rest. They're helping their brain grow and having that language already so that when they get to those teenage years or the older teenager years, they understand the importance of it. So it's important also to encourage a young person to have a healthy routine before bed. So sleep hygiene, you may have heard the term before. So doing things that help them relax and avoiding that blue light, as I was talking about. So it may be listening to some music quietly, doing some meditation, having a bath. It might be about having family time and playing some games that's away from screens that can help them feel connected as well. So anything that makes them feel happy and calm leading up to bedtime. Also avoiding caffeine. So again, I have a lot of clients, or I know quite a few young people that are drinking caffeine quite late in the afternoons or the evenings. So making sure that that's been cut out too. We always recommend before 2 p.m. So not consuming caffeine after 2 p.m. to help with that sleep quality. Okay, so another strategy is using relaxation techniques. So we have belly breathing, meditation. We've got different apps there. So again, you can take a photo of those or write them down, the Smiling Mind app and the Reach Out Breathe app. But also I encourage people to use YouTube. So if they want to learn how to use correct breathing techniques, this can actually impact and change our nervous system automatically. So it has a rapid response. If there's anyone signed in tonight that likes doing research and likes to find more information, then please have a look at the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have 2 parts of our nervous system, and basically it's a relax and a stress. And what happens is they can't, like a light switch, they can't both be turned on at the same time. Only one can be on. More often than not, we're finding that young people are sitting in that relaxed state. It's like a light that's constantly on and burning for them. So what we want to do is switch that flip and get them into a relaxed state. So meditation and belly breathing don't have to be for a long time. I teach my clients to do a belly breathing technique to try and bring the breath down into their belly. And I encourage them to do a breath in for 4 seconds, a breath out for 4 seconds, and repeat for 4 times. So it's only a really, really short exercise that they can learn to do, and then they can incorporate that throughout the day. If they can practice at nighttime when they're in bed and they get better and better at it, then they can use that in any stressful situation that arises. This breathing technique, as short and simple as it is, has immediate response, as I was saying, an immediate effect on the body. So a really great one to teach your young person and even practice yourself too. So I have a lot of clients that also come in and will say, I can't meditate. I can't sit there for 20 minutes and do that. It doesn't work for me. I can't quiet my mind. So again, that's where I encourage just that short-term breathing that can help. So doing something you love. So this might be a bit hard to see if you are listening on your phone. I apologise. But what I have here is a picture of 50 ways to take a break. There are so many things on there that you can do. So listening to music, climbing trees, letting go of something, reading poetry, dancing, giving thanks, reading a book, learning something new, having a bath. So as we grow up, we forget to play and we forget to be creative, or we just say, I'm not creative, I can't do that. But it's a really important part to living a wholehearted life and combating stress. So dance, art and creativity, they don't have to be done perfectly, but it is important to maintain doing these and doing the things that your teen enjoys. And even better if you can do it with them. So what I've learned that is a lot of teenagers do still want one-on-one time or family time in their family, but are sometimes a little bit too maybe embarrassed to ask to do these things as they start to get older, or they don't know how to ask their parents to do these things as they get older. So sometimes it has to come from us to engage in these 50 ways to take a break with them, or being creative with them. For me, my favourite thing that I love to do if I've had a really hard day at work or I've had some really stressful situations going on, I get in the car and when I'm heading home, I put on Pearl Jam. So I don't know if anyone's from my generation who know them. And I turn it on really loud and I sing and scream away the music as loud as I can the whole way home. So it doesn't have to be anything great. It doesn't have to be anything serious, just little things, and they all add up to bringing that stress level down. I've also just put the little sun in there to remind you that if you can do anything outdoors, that's really important too, to have some fresh air and some vitamin D. And eating well and exercising. It's no myth that physical health and exercise can have a big impact on mental health. It can help to release tension in the body and increase energy. We also know that exercise gets the blood moving and releases an array of chemicals that are an important part of regulating your mood. So endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, all the happy hormones, they get released when we start to exercise. Drinking water. So many of us are dehydrated. So we know that our brains are made up of 75% water. So encouraging a young person to make sure they're drinking water throughout the day is really important because it can impact on our stress levels and our mood. And also eating a balance of foods. So I don't ever talk to my clients about restricting or restraining or trying to cut big groups out. I just talk about trying to add a little bit more fruit or a little bit more vegetables into their diet. Okay, a really important one. So a really good strategy is talking it out and connection. So feeling valued and loved is part of being human. Needing connection to a community and to family and people we love is really important. Teenagers naturally move away from their family system and closer to social friendships around high school, so varying ages for different young people. And this is a really healthy rite of passage, but they do still want to know that their family is there for them. So encourage your child to speak up if they're experiencing a tough time. And it's by creating a safe space where they don't think or they believe their feelings won't be judged. So we do have a program called Tuning Into Teens. So if you want to learn about connecting with your young person and emotion coaching, I'll share at the end how to join up for that mailing list. We also know that through hugs and through touch, we can have endorphins, dopamine and serotonin released as well. And it doesn't always have to be through big bear hugs. If you've got the type of young person that doesn't really like being hugged, it might be through playing soccer or a contact sport or high fives. There are different ways that you can incorporate touch into your relationship with your child. But for a young person, feeling that they're a valued member of the family, especially if they're having friendship difficulties, is really important. This is one I always think of my niece. So my niece always says to me, you can't talk to yourself positively. You can't talk yourself up. That's so arrogant. And I'm still trying to teach her now at 13 that it's really important to engage in positive self-talk. So let your child know that it's actually really good to, to feel okay about themselves and to feel good about who they are. Compliment themselves on their achievements. And you can start doing this by telling them, talk to them and letting them know why you think they're great, and then asking them to join in and list things that they think that they're great too. So increasing positive self-talk can help with mindset and motivation as well. So I've just got a picture there. So we have 95% of the same thoughts today that we had yesterday. So if we're engaging in negative self-talk, self-belief, then it is really hard to break that cycle and feel any value in life. That can then cause us stress and sadness. So the earlier we can teach our children and our young people to engage in talking positively about themselves to themselves, then they will have those same thoughts ongoing, and it's going to create a really positive cycle. Okay. This one is probably one of the most important out of all of the strategies. So you may have heard the old saying, do as I do, not as I say. Oh, sorry, I'll correct that. You may have heard the old saying, do as I say, not as I do. But what we need to be saying is do as I do, not as I say. So a really great way to encourage your child to incorporate any of these strategies that we've spoken about is to do them yourself. Have them, as part of the household. Get everyone in the house to engage in these strategies and do them together if you can. Teaching coping strategies to your teen could be one of the most important skills that they learn, these life skills. They can learn them now and they can keep them in their toolkit to use when future obstacles or problems present themselves. And if we can use them when we're feeling good and strong, then we can use them when we're not, when we need them the most. So sometimes sharing the strategies that you use when you're experiencing a really hard week of work or a really hard week of family or things are going on, you know, that can start that conversation with your teen and it can help build the rapport and reinforce the importance of seeking help. So there's a couple of strategies there, but what it's really important is to look for warning signs. So noticing changes in someone's behaviour can be a little bit more obvious than noticing changes in someone's thoughts or feelings. So if they don't want someone to know that they're struggling with their thoughts or feelings, young people can be really good at hiding these. So things to look for with behaviours. So are they tired or sleeping in a lot? Are they avoiding social events? Are they crying a lot more, not eating, eating too much? Are they moody that's ongoing? Are they yelling a lot? The feelings that you might see or notice would be being sad, down, stressed, numb or angry. And the thoughts or statements that you might hear, something around the lines of I'm not lovable, I can't do this, I have to be perfect, I can't fail, I will always fail. So thoughts or statements like that. So sometimes you can get clues into how a young person's feeling by listening to their words carefully or watching their body language. But the most important thing to do is to ask. So what we want to do is approach your teen at a good time. So I always think of young people like to have a radar of knowing when we're about to walk out the door or we're about to have a bath or do something when it's finally 5 minutes for ourselves. So you might have to plan out a little bit of time. I always find driving in the car is a great one. If you can be side by side a young person or maybe playing a game where you're side by side, it's not that really intense eye to eye contact. That can be a lot easier for the young person to talk about what's going on for them. And then how might you ask? So, you know, it might be how are things going, or I've noticed this, you've said in the past, you know, you were really worried about failing that exam. Are you worried about other exams? Do you worry much about other subjects? I want to try and help. Is there anything I can do? And let's work this out together. So sometimes young people that I've worked with in the past have been really afraid of talking to their parents and letting their parents know what's going on. They're often worried that their parent will look at them differently. They're worried that they'll be disappointed or that it's going to cause problems. And sometimes they even worry that their parents won't love them anymore if they're experiencing problems. So maybe when having these conversations, you can affirm that everything, you know, it's okay and it's better to talk about these things. It's better to get help and that it won't change how you feel about them and how you look at them and how much you love them. If they don't want to talk, that's okay as well. It's okay to come back at another time and we'll talk about where to go to as well if they don't want to talk but you really think they do need some help. And don't worry about saying the wrong thing. It's better that you make an effort to try and they will pick up on that. I think a lot of the time when I've been working with parents or with friends, they worry about the response to say back. But that will come naturally when you start with authentic listening. So listening non-judgmentally. So young people know straight away if you're not listening or you're being judgmental. They have really good raters for that sort of stuff. So I've just put a couple of memes in here. So is it really possible to be non-judgmental? So some people will say yes, some people will say no. And the answer is actually no. So we can't be non-judgmental. We all have our own judgments. We all have our own values, our own cultures, and the way that we were raised and what we've grown up with. So we can never be truly judgmental. But if we're aware of our judgments, if we're aware of our values and our beliefs, then we can lead them to the side and we can have a conversation that's non-judgmental. We can listen with empathy. We can try not to judge them and judge what they're going through. So a good listener, being a good listener for your young person is a little bit different to having a conversation with a friend. So we want to use a caring voice, be patient and calm. Now, my little magic trick when working with young people is silence. So obviously I don't sit there for the full 50 minutes in silence, but if you give them just enough silence, the anxiety and the uncomfortableness of sitting in silence will often get them talking. Sometimes also young people need time to process the question. They need time to process the answer and what they're really thinking about. And the other thing that I find is sometimes young people have never really been given enough of a chance to actually think about what do I want or what's going on. So when they're asked that question, they just kind of give that fawn response that I was talking about, that trying to please, oh, if I say this, you know, that'll get mum or dad or auntie or uncle or grandma off my back. So giving them a little bit of time and space to, you know, to open up and talk to you about what's going on. Don't try and finish their sentence because they will get there. And remember that this is about them and not about you. So, you know, young people really don't like it when you go, oh, when I was 15, this happened, and when I was 18, that happened. As tempting as it is, and I know that I still do it from time to time, I have to remember not to do that. So young people just want to feel heard. They don't always want their problems solved. And if they come to you with a problem, you can say to them, do you want me to help you solve this? Do you want to solve this together? But sometimes they just want to get it off their chest. And this can help bring them a relief from the anxiety or the stress that they're feeling. So let them just get it off, let them get it out, and then just listen to what's going on for them. Remember that if they do react negatively when you first sort of bring up these questions with them, that it may be because they're processing what's going on. It's not about you, but more about them maybe not having that chance before to talk about it. So they're really thrown off. This is definitely my favourite meme that I have ever found. So I'm sorry, did the middle of my sentence interrupt the beginning of yours? Now I could use this every single night with my family. So just to remember that as they're talking, when they're pausing, they might just be gathering their thoughts and how they want to word it, and particularly if they're worried about your judgments. The young person might just be trying to figure out how to put it into the correct way that won't upset you or scare you or change, you know, the way that you feel about them, which is generally an unrealistic belief or thought. So, empathetic listening, it allows you to develop and enhance your relationship with a stronger understanding of what's being communicated. So both intellectually and emotionally, it can help you build trust with your young person. It can help you build respect, and it creates a really safe environment for them to be able to share what's going on. So again, another one you can take a screenshot of just for some really good empathetic statements. So I hear you. You know, sometimes it doesn't have to be about having a really big statement to say back or answer to their problems. It could just be, that sounds really tough. How can I help? And then, you know, if you're sort of listening to what they're saying and you're not sure if you've got it right or not, you can say, I think this is what you're saying. Is that right? And often young people will say, no, that's not what I mean. And it just gives them that chance to correct you if there's sort of been a miscommunication there. So making sure, if you can, giving your young person, your teen, your undivided attention, listening carefully to their feelings and their thoughts and what some of the underlying things may be. Show that you're listening through your body language, restate and paraphrase, and use open-ended questions. So empathy is really just about the young person not feeling alone, so they're able to share what's really going on. If you're wanting some more information, Brene Brown, who this quote comes from, she's absolutely fantastic in this space. So seeking support. Stress on teens can be harmful to their health and well-being, especially when prolonged. So if your teen has been showing signs of stress, try the suggested strategies in having that conversation with them. Try the coping strategies in regards to doing fun things together, exercising, eating well, really focusing on that sleep. But if nothing seems to be happening, then it may be a really good idea to seek some support. So the first step that we always say is to, if you have a family doctor, you can speak to your GP, or consider giving your child the opportunity to talk things over with a counsellor. So again, I'm going to put one up that can be a good one to take a screenshot of, but I'll talk briefly through these. So down the bottom, we've got the GP for a mental health care plan. So a mental health care plan is a plan where the young person can get subsidised sessions through a psychologist. You can go through the private psychologist option if you have recommendations for someone in your area. Then you've got school counsellor if they are attending school. They can go up and ask them to speak to them themselves, or you can jump in and help if needed or wanted. Headspace is the #1 youth organisation for mental health. So Headspace have psychologists and psychiatrists available, but being mindful for a lot of these services, there are big waits at the moment. Again, for Headspace and the private psychologist, you will need the mental health care plan from your GP. Then if you're wanting to call, so we've got 2 lifelines or 2 lines here, Kids Helpline and Lifeline. So Lifeline's more if it's on the serious end, but Kids Helpline, you can always ring and say, I'm having these issues or having these concerns. I'm not sure what to do. Can you give some advice? And Kids Helpline would be happy to help out there as well. So it doesn't always have to be about the young person calling or going. You may want to ring and get some advice too. Reach Out, which is the youth part of Beyond Blue. They've got really great resources online, so you can jump online and see some PDFs for all of this stuff that was spoken about. You may see other things about anxiety or depression, and heaps of different options for information there. And they also have a really good resource list of different apps that are good for young people, so exercise, meditation, and all those sort of things. And then at the top, last but not least, obviously Wyndham City Council. So we've got our counselling and counselling team, and as well youth programs. So programs can be really great for sort of that early intervention, prevention, and having young people connected and engaged. And then we've got the counselling team if they're needing that little bit more support in regards to mental health. So does anybody have any questions, or were there any questions there that have come through?
We don't currently have any questions here, but feel free, everyone, to pop them in the chat and we'll answer to their best of our abilities.
Right, just while if anyone wanted to type anything in there, I just wanted to show this that you can sign up for our family information list. So if you want to have information about upcoming events and workshops, our next event we will have Andrew Fuller, who's a child psychologist and family therapist, presenting. So that's definitely going to be a really big, really important one to come along to. If you're signed up to a mailing list, you'll get all the information. I think we're doing that hybrid, so it'll be in person and online if restrictions stay open. And also then you can get updates about other events that we have. We also have expressions of interest for joining our Tuning into Teens program. So it's an 8-week program, parenting support program to help you connect with your young person. and learning some really great emotion coaching skills to support them with all of this stuff that we've spoken about and more. And also we will put in the chat box a link to a survey. So if you would like to complete a survey and ask for any other trainings that you would like or topics that you want us to present to you, this is your opportunity to do that. But we'll also send that out via email if you don't want to fill that out now too. Okay, so did any questions come through?
No questions have come through, but I wanted to ask a question that I often get asked, and that is that sometimes when our teens are stressed, that can come through in a way where young people can show aggressive behaviours, and so that can be really difficult to manage. Do you have any strategies in terms of how our caregivers and parents can deal with those sort of more aggressive or highly assertive behaviours that can come through?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jay. So with that would be the fight response. So when a young person's experiencing that stress or anxiety reaction, they can get quite fiery. My biggest recommendation is to, as best possible, not engage with it at the time, because in our brain we have what's called mirror neurons, and what can happen is if a young person flips their lid, which is a term that's used, Andrew Fuller talks about as well, we can often respond and sort of lose our cool as well. So if you find that you're that hot-headed type or quick to respond type, which is very normal to respond like that because we then often, feel that anxiety as well, we don't want to be responding in that moment. So where possible, we want to remain as calm as we can, and if that means walking away, then you know that's always the best option. And coming back and talking to the young person when they've calmed down. And it might be, it's about sort of being really supportive, but rather than in a punishment conversation, because a young person might have felt threatened, they might be really stressed, really anxious. And it's about finding out what's underlying that, because we know that anger is a secondary emotion. So it's a response to anxiety. So although no one likes to be attacked or have a young person yelling at them, it's really important to understand that this is coming from a place where they're feeling uneasy and anxious too. So making sure we're giving them that space to calm down, and then having a chat about, what's going on, what's causing that, and then maybe some practical options instead. Okay, so when you feel like you're getting heated and things are getting frustrating for you and your anger's starting to build, what can you do instead? So do you need to go for a run? Do you need to go do some adult colouring? Do you need to go scream into a pillow in your room where it's private? Do you need to listen to some music and jump around? And letting them do something that lets that energy out, but in a really safe way, so it's not threatening to anyone else in the household. And then while they're doing that, then working on what's actually causing it, because unless the issue of the anxiety is addressed, then the behaviours are likely to continue as well, or they may be put into another maladaptive coping strategy. So maladaptive is just a non-helpful strategy, which is that exploding.
Thanks, Fran. I've just got another question that's been asked, and that is, are there any strategies or advice for a teen who has an overconfident exterior, but that they're not? There's lots of self-image and low self-esteem issues.
Yeah, okay. If it's been ongoing for some time, they may want to talk to a counsellor or a therapist about it in terms of just preventing it from getting worse. So I often think about a counsellor in terms of we'll go to a gym or we'll eat a really healthy, balanced diet in terms of keeping our body and our mind healthy, but we don't talk to a counsellor as a preventative strategy, which is a bit of a shame. So I would be potentially getting her to talk to someone so it doesn't turn into something bigger, because if she's kind of wearing a mask on the outside, then she's definitely hiding away, or she or he is hiding away from what's going on the inside, which means that's not actually being dealt with or worked on. If you're wanting to keep it at home, then maybe it's about just having those conversations. So you know, I've noticed that you seem really confident around your friends, but I feel like maybe you don't really feel that about yourself. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to work on it? But I think definitely the first step is getting them to open up to you or to a therapist, so then you can start working on those issues. And I think that's where it comes back to those 95% of the thoughts are the same thoughts. From one day to the next, so they will be automatic thoughts. So the young person will, if they're having negative self-talk, they're likely to have that the next day without them being aware. So of their subconscious, it will just automatically go down that negative path. There's a really great book called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy by Russ Harris. There's an adult version and there's also a pocket version. So the pocket version can be a really good one for a young person, but he talks about ways to interrupt and change the brain from having these repetitive thoughts. So that could be a good one for yourself as the parent to read and then incorporate those strategies at home.
Thanks, Fran. We've got one more. And I think this is going back to the when you were talking about the aggressive behaviours. What happens if you walk away and they follow you and keep yelling?
Okay, so I would continue to just walk away, because in that moment, unless they're going to hurt you, you have to be very mindful not to turn your back on them, and that's a safety issue. But I would walk away, and nothing will be achieved in that time. So it doesn't matter if you berate them, if you punish them, if you try and have a conversation, because their brain has actually turned into the reptilian brain side, their reasoning brain has completely shut down. So no conversation will actually have any impact at that point in time. So really, number one is safety, making sure that you're safe, and then just really allowing them the time for them to calm down and then trying to do the work. Yeah.
Thanks, Fran. We've got another one. Do you have any strategies I could use for my teenager who has panic attacks but won't talk or see anyone?
Okay, so it can be hard if they're not wanting to see anyone, particularly with panic attacks. That can lead to more serious sort of panic disorder, where the panic attacks, they then get anxiety about the panic attacks. So the anxiety causes the panic attack, which causes more anxiety about the panic attack, which actually causes another panic attack, so it sort of spirals. I would be looking at Headspace or Reach Out and see if there's potentially some information there the young person can read up about. If they are quite a high achiever, sometimes that can kind of go hand in hand, the anxiety with high achieving. They might want to do the research themselves rather than talking to someone. So I would keep working on them about speaking to someone, because it's really important that they deal with it as soon as possible, because the longer it goes on, the harder it is to sort of undo the work. We're trying to get in as early as possible. But if they want to do some research themselves, so definitely, particularly with anxiety, we don't want to be Googling anything, because Google always tells us worst case scenario. And we already go there if you have anxiety thinking. So using the, I'll just pop it back up on there. screen so you can take a screenshot. Reach out, Beyond Blue or Headspace will have really good proper PDF information rather than just Google information. But if you get really stuck, that's where I'd recommend you calling Beyond Blue or Kids Helpline and asking them for some really personalised strategies for your young person as well.
Thanks, Fran. I think that's all we have got.
Okay. Also, you can email us at Wyndham to the youth counselling inbox, or you can call us and have a chat as well. We're more than happy to sort of have that consultation if need be. So if you call and we're not available, we'll call back generally within 1 or 2 working days and can have a chat about supporting your team too.
Great, thanks, Fran. We've just got some lovely comments coming through of participants just saying thank you and that it was valuable. So we appreciate everybody attending.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great night and a good weekend.
All right, and we're ending in 3, 2, and 1. Goodbye, everybody.